Good evening, everybody, and welcome to another edition of the Sports Exchange. My name is Scott Morgan, Roth, the Motor City Man Mouth, along with Candy Ebling, and leading off and playing first base. I love that baseball stuff. Rick Curti, how are you, Mr. Curti?
Hi guys, how are you?
Oh, we're doing great, thank you. So, how's everything going up in North Carolina?
It's very quiet. We're pretty much on a lockdown. Of course, what's going on, and we got crazy people that just don't want to listen. But we're pretty much just on lockdown, and I've been renting movies and watching what is sports I can watch, and just trying to keep busy.
Yeah, well, I've tried to stay away from the Stephen A. Smith thing after a while. I've got other ways to supplement my time. I needed them for a while so we can build you up to your rants on how you can tear Max up and then take your jabs at Stephen A. So I've tried to shift my programming thing a little bit to adjust to the situation that we're in. Candy, tell everybody here about your drive up to work during the day. Has it been a little bit less crowded on the roads?
It's been a lot less crowded total, but I would say a week and a half ago on that Thursday, Friday was probably the lowest, and I would say the traffic has actually increased almost a little every day this week, which kind of surprises me because you were supposed to be in a state of not going to work and staying home. But yeah, it's a lot later than it always used to be, with the school day and everything like that.
Yeah, I managed to acclimate all right, too. I mean, I do have an eye appointment tomorrow, but I go to the grocery store once in a blue moon. Maybe I'll get out to Subway if I need to. But other than the grocery store, my get out of jail card is when I get to come to the studio so I can at least see how beautiful the weather is, even if I'm trapped inside in like a caged lion. With that said, this caged lion is going to talk about some top headlines, and Mr. Curti, you're going to we'll give you a lot of things to talk about. First of all, Wimbledon was canceled. It's the first time since 1945. This is the oldest tournament in tennis, dating back to 1877. And then when you talk about the Grand Slam that won't be staged, it was put on hold in 1940 to 45 due to World War II. What are your thoughts about Wimbledon being canceled and not postponed, Rick?
Surreal, just surreal. It's just that thing's been around for over 100 years. I love watching Wimbledon. It's my favorite tennis tournament of the year. I love it that it's in England. They all wear white. It's like the granddaddy of tennis, and they're just waiting it out. This thing could end tomorrow, it could end 2 weeks, it could end in 2 hours, or it can be around for a year. We don't know. So a lot of people have just canceled things. Some have postponed it, being optimistic. So they're being optimistic, but it just doesn't really look good. The numbers keep increasing with this COVID-19 thing. Keeps increasing out here. So we'll see what happens, but they're just being optimistic. But when it gets later onto the date, they'll cancel it, which will be very surreal to see Wimbledon canceled.
Well, Wimbledon, Rick, let me clarify. Wimbledon has been canceled. Well, it was not postponed, just so you understand, okay? They were,
okay.
Yeah, and it's okay. And they like to play that event usually in July, and I think, or the end of June, July, leading up into the 4th of July area. And you know what? I credit the folks out in England for doing it because some sports are willing to move it up to another time. For example, the Indianapolis 500, which normally has the Memorial Day time slot all to itself, does move out to September. But so the Triple Crown will be done more so this fall. I'm sure waiting to see how many of the dominoes drop. But yeah, just to let you know, it has been canceled and it will not be played for the first time since the mid '40s. And you know what? I respect the daylights out of them for doing that. They're committed to that July time slot. God bless those people up there. And when I talk about shrines in sports, I never made it to the Montreal Forum. I did make it to Maple Leaf Gardens. I did make it to the Boston Garden. And, of course, who can ever doubt that Lambeau Field is undoubtedly one of the biggest shrines. I won't say the new Yankee Stadium, but the old one, which I did happen to have a chance to go to one time, was one. But we'll talk about it another day about the biggest shrines in sports. But Wimbledon is a must-do. Whether you see a tournament or you don't see a tournament, if you're ever out in England, you get to Wimbledon, at least take a tour of the place. And I think that's something down the road, way down the road, Candy and I are looking to do. But yeah, Any other thoughts about Wimbledon? I always like watching that tournament. I watch a lot of tennis tournaments, but when it comes to the Grand Slam, particularly a grass one, I think if I had to judge about the different tournaments I watch in tennis, I would probably put Wimbledon number one, the U.S. Open number two. I don't really watch the Australian Open and the French Open. I could care less about tennis on clay. But the Wimbledon and the U.S. Open, to me, are the two. Candy, you are obviously making some interesting faces at me. Why don't you talk about the sport that you so dearly love?
Well, because you keep knocking a sport that is near and dear to my heart. Have you ever played on clay or grass?
As a matter of fact, I have played on clay. Many years ago in South Florida, my dear, okay, I played on a clay court, and I'm lucky I didn't tear an ACL because it's like playing on dirt. Now, in terms of playing on grass, I always used to play on grass when I had wrestling matches with all my friends, so not tennis. But no, I have played on clay. Living in the South Florida, once upon a time, guys, I wrote a story many, many, many years ago working for the Hallandale Digest on a guy by the name of Arthur Ashe. And some of my better interviews during my developmental years, I had Arthur Ashe. Jimmy Connors wasn't so nice, and again, he never was. Jimmy Arias was a nice guy. I really had the good fortune of coming across Bjorn Borg, one of the nicest people you'll ever meet. Ilya Nastasi, well, a lot of people don't have many choice words for him, but I did cover a tournament called the Hamptons Tournament down here in North Miami in Turnberry, and it was an unbelievable thing. Now, Nastasi was such an interesting promoter that he had a 2 out of 3 tournament, but he saw a money cow there, and he made it a 3 out of 5, and everybody was angry about it, but Nastasi was really nasty with his good business sense to be able to do it. Now, I enjoyed covering it back in the day in South Florida. Remember, Chris Everett, I met her many years ago, never cared for her arrogance, but I did write a story on Claire Everett, and the Everett family is very predominant in South Florida. So, Candy, just so you know, okay, I have a much bigger history with tennis than you think. And I will never, ever, and I swear to God, okay, knock what incredible athletes these players are. If you can go 7-8 hours and play exhausting matches, there aren't too many sports that you can get around in an individual sport to go that long. You know, we talk about endurance with IMSA and endurance racing, but what these people do is truly remarkable. I have nothing but respect for a lot of these players. And also another one I should throw in there, the first event at the Palace of Auburn Hills, I met Andre Agassi, one of the classiest guys you'll ever meet. So, you know, I've got a bigger history than most people think, even though I don't quite advertise it as much as I am with the Big Four, let alone NASCAR. So there, I'm setting the record straight. Go ahead, Katie, what's your comeback?
So I'll turn my comeback into some more information about Wimbledon.
Okay.
And why they canceled it.
Sure.
We talk about all these other big sporting events that are postponed or, you know, well, could they or couldn't they? Well, here's one for everybody. So Wimbledon is played outdoors in England in July for a reason. If it went later in the year, it's too dark and they don't have lights on all the back courts to play all those back matches. The weather is a big factor over in England. There's too much dew later in the year that they can't play on all. Remember, they're grass courts,
right?
And too much dew, they would be sliding and slipping, and that would be too many injuries. So there's a very fine line, a very narrow window, I should say, that where they can really play the tournament. And if they can't play the tournament in that window, they had no other choice.
Now, correct me if I'm wrong. I believe there are 2 main courts. They do have the ability to close the roof. Is that correct?
Is it 2 or is it 1? I think you're right. I think there's 2.
There are 2 that they can, but with the amount of matches and the amount of people that play in it, it does make it very difficult for them to do it. But nevertheless, to me, Wimbledon was only meant to be a July event, and I've always used to love the theme Breakfast at Wimbledon. When I first lived in South Florida and I had practically no family here, it was nice to see Dick Enberg and Bud Collins, and I felt like even though I was alone, it was nice to be able to use Breakfast at Wimbledon to give me something to do. And at that time, they were doing it on July 4th, so it was kind of neat. Hey, listen, it's a bucket list item if you ever get a chance to do it, and if you don't, at least go to the place because it's a shrine. So this is one of the few times I'm complimenting tennis for those people that think I've been hard on it, probably to some extreme. But I remember a lot of the players back in the days when I was covering it, you know, they thought their they thought they were so arrogant that it turned me off, is what they did. But there's a lot of good ones out there as well. But I'll never knock the tradition of this sport, tennis. Undoubtedly, last night on our debate show with winners, with the Three Stooges, okay, we did incorporate some tennis people into the equation, like Chris Everett, Martina Navratilova. And I never had the opportunity to allude to the fact that one of the biggest sporting events ever happened to be Billie Jean King and Bobby Riggs. And back in my days in radio in Detroit, we had Bobby Riggs on the on Sports Talk on ABC, and Bobby was actually pretty fun to talk to. And I ended up going to the Houston Astrodome many years ago. And one of the nicest part about going to Houston Astrodome was that was where that match between King and Riggs was. But Bobby Riggs was a great guest, all I can tell you. I wish I had tapes back in the day, but then in 1979, I can tell you it was a totally different animal, and I wouldn't have enough voice to even get into that one. Any other closing thoughts, Candy and Rick, about Wimbledon?
It's just sad because it's such a historic event, but I think it was just inevitable because of what's been going on. So it's just sad, but it is what it is.
Okay. All right, let's go on to the next one. Okay, Rick. Reality has set in for Dallas Mavericks owner Mark Cuban about the NBA timeline. The other day I happened to watch it on Get Up. He said he has no idea, and at this particular point, he was ambitious about seeing the sport start in May, but now reality's begun to set in as the death toll increases. And before you get to that, I want to tell everybody that the Sports Exchange can only hope that we are a diversion to you and that we do everything to provide you with the best entertainment possible. So please enjoy what we're trying to do. We're really trying to make sure you have some. And most of all, okay, on behalf of everybody at the South Florida Tribune Broadcasting Network, please be safe. Go out there and follow everything you hear in social media, the news. We don't want you to be on the wrong end of the statistics. Candy, Rick, want to echo those thoughts?
People just need to listen to your governor, listen to your mayors. This is not like some joke. It's not like a flu. This is much, much, much worse than a flu. And this thing doesn't care. It don't care if you're rich or you're famous or whatever. This thing is very, very, very serious, and you just need to listen to people. They tell you to stay home. Stay home. You got nothing to do. Just stay home and be safe. Candy,
what do you want to say?
I would agree with that. I mean, they're talking to the point now that they might start asking everybody to wear masks. And I'm out in it because I am an essential employee, and I see way too many people out there. I see too many people out there doing things that they have no business doing during this pandemic. I've talked to certain people. Some people take it very, very lightly. I've actually known, and I can honestly say that somebody I know has lost a relative due to this illness, to this pandemic. People need to heed the warning. Because yes, maybe you are healthy and maybe you might get a little sick and you feel that it's not going to affect anybody, but you carry it within you, and if you pass it to somebody else, they might not survive.
Yeah, didn't you say you had a situation at your company where one of the employees lost their parents back to back?
Yeah, that's what I was referring to.
Okay, well, that's fine. I just want to make sure to clarify. So, yeah, the reality is take this situation seriously. The numbers are adding up for all the wrong reasons. So, yeah, we hope that everything we can do at the South Florida Tribune Broadcasting Network allows you folks to have the best diversion that you can. What we'd like you to do is hopefully listen, download, subscribe to it. We have go to www.southfloridatribune.com, and you'll have a list of all the broadcasts that we have. And, we are distributed through a lot of the main ones. We're talking about Apple Podcasts, Spreaker, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Google Podcasts, just to name a few. So wherever you get your broadcast, feel free to subscribe, and we look forward to being able to give you updates as time goes on. So with that said, let's go on to the next thing. I think that Tiger Woods Phil Mickelson match could end up including Tom Brady and Peyton Manning. Now keep in mind, okay, Rick, Candy, that Woods played with and Peyton Manning played together at the 2019 Pro-Am Memorial Tournament, whereas you're looking at potential Brady versus Phil. I think that would be pretty interesting entertainment if they could pull that off.
Tom Brady versus Phil Mickelson?
Yeah, and the best thing is they're not going to have fans there, basically. So, yeah, let me tell you what potential pairings could be: Tiger Woods and Peyton Manning, and Tom Brady and Phil Mickelson. So, hey, if you have nobody out there, no fans, just TV watching it, I think anything at this particular point, we'd certainly like to watch it. As much as it's hard for me to watch golf, it's only a one-day event, anyways. I would definitely watch these four in action. I think it'd be pretty different, unique, and creative. And nowadays, we need anything we can get.
I didn't even know Tom Brady played golf.
Now you do. So, be hypothetic about this, okay? If Tom Brady and Phil Mickelson were to go ahead and play against Woods and Manning, I think it'd be pretty neat. What do you think, Rick?
I'm not interested. I'm sorry.
That's okay.
I can't watch golf. It just sounds too gimmicky to me.
It is gimmicky. Yeah, that's okay.
Yeah.
It's okay.
And like I said, I don't even know how good of a golfers Peyton Manning and Tom Brady are. Maybe they can make Phil Mickelson and Tiger Woods wide receivers. That'd be kind of fun. But I don't know how good of golfers they are. They could be good golfers, but compared to them, they might stink. So. And I'm just not interested. I remember when they had that Phil Mickelson and Tiger Woods pay-per-view, and I'm just like, I'm so over it. I'm just like,
right, okay.
God bless golf for doing something like this. Kind of like I don't know, Ali versus Frazier, or
right.
Agassi versus Sampras. But I'm just not interested. I really don't want to see Tom Brady and Peyton Manning golfing.
Okay, but my gut feeling, and I appreciate where you're coming from. I think it is definitely gimmicky. I wouldn't be surprised if Peyton Manning is a good golfer. It's not like he took a full-time NFL job. He's just kind of working on his own schedule, and he can do whatever he wants to do, whether it's commercials or whatnot. He's never committed to a front office job, let alone ESPN has courted him 9 million times ago on Monday Night Football, and he's giving him the no, 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 no. He doesn't mind doing his ESPN Plus stuff because it's more flexible with his time, and Peyton Manning's a really good businessman anyways. But all right, Candy, what are your thoughts about something like that?
I think at this point that all of us are starving for some type of sporting event. And let's face it, a golf event, albeit not many of us are big golf fans or to watch golf on TV, but it would be the one type of event where you can keep your social distancing, you have no fans, you just have one sporting event, you have 4 people on a golf course so they can keep their social distance, and you would have caddies, of course, and some guys with cameras. But I think the world is starving for some kind of sporting event.
All right, Rick, I got a topic that will definitely set you off, so I don't know if this is going to be conversational or a rant, but I put it as 4 stars on my list of things we're going to talk about. So let me give you the particulars and you give me your feedback, okay? Former Houston manager A.J. Hinch and ex-GM Jeff Luhnow will be credited with serving their 1-season suspensions for their parts in the club sign-stealing scandal if the 2020 campaign is canceled due to COVID-19. And they're tied to the end of the 2020 postseason. What are your thoughts about that?
Well, Scott, you've been telling me about a rant. This sounds like a rant for me to go on. These two idiots have no business being in baseball, let alone finish their suspension. These guys are a disgrace. They're cheaters, and how they could their sentence. I mean, the season ain't even started yet, so how can he complete their sentence? So. Right. I mean, it's just a joke. It's a travesty. Manfred's a joke for not doing anything about the Astros, not even suspending them, giving them immunity, and for these 2 clowns, and I do mean clowns, for them to just kind of get away with it, and they keep the World Series, and they're always going to be World Series champions. I think it's a travesty to baseball, and I hope I never see these 2 idiots in baseball ever again. Let alone like Little League or some kind of a women's softball league. They need to be gone for good.
Yeah, and what's amazing about that whole thing, Rick, you're really dead on. Everybody talked about the potential retaliation, okay, about what could definitely happen. Well, if they're not playing many games, let alone a season, nobody's retaliating. I mean, you're right; they do get off scot free, so to speak. So, yeah, they definitely. I mean, they're not getting paid where other people might get paid. We don't know about that, but they're. I think if anybody stands a chance to get hired, it's probably AJ Hinch. But Jeff Lunau, from what I hear, his reputation is not very good, and I don't think. I've been following this subject all day, and I think he's definitely going to get blackballed. AJ Hinch, if he shows any remorse, perhaps, but it depends on the desperation and it also of a team to win and whether or not there's any kind of it depends on the situation. Candy, what are your thoughts on this one?
Honestly, in a league as big as MLB, I cannot believe that a lawyer didn't look at that document that said you will be punished only for the season. All the other punishments are how many games. No, there's a technicality. Theirs was you will not participate for the 2020 season. So if there isn't a season, they've already served their sentence. I think that is utterly ridiculous that someone didn't look at that and realize what could happen and why you wouldn't put in, if you're going to put everybody else in disciplinary by games, why you wouldn't have done it for the same for them.
Yeah, well, you talk about loophole in the gray area. We found one right here, that's for sure. And from what I hear about the potential punishment for Joey Cora of the Red Sox when Manfred ultimately announces that, I've heard rumors, and I think Carl Ravitch is the one who mentioned it today on SportsCenter, that he'll probably get it for the 2021 season. So Cora might very well have to serve the time and he'll lose his money, but that's exactly where this situation stands. You know what? I don't consider this a rant. I think all three of us have a strong opinion of the whole thing, because how many people were actually looking for the retaliation against the Astros? Because you knew what was going to happen. Forget about what took place. Yeah, I mean,
it still will.
Spring training.
Yeah, well, that's it. And nobody cared about spring training. You only had a few of them anyways. Everybody was looking forward to the boos and the retaliation, the HBPs and all that. Now, if Justin Verlander misses a season, he has injuries, he's getting fixed up anyways. It doesn't make any difference. So, because I know he had some surgery earlier in the year. But, again, I'm not putting down Justin Verlander. I think he's a Hall of Famer without his Astros accomplishments. And I really, truly believe that because he had a good body of work in Detroit. And what he did with the Astros was pretty much got the ring is what he did. We know that they'll never be an asterisk and they'll take him away. And I'm glad that they don't in Major League Baseball. I mean, they have the championship earned or not. Who's to say that in the Baseball Hall of Fame that at some point down the road, okay, they won't make references because it is a museum. But no, I'm against them taking away the championship. I really am in MLB. But yeah, you're right. These guys are going to get off very easily as a result of a gray area and a loophole, for sure. So, so I guess that was the closest thing you were going to get to a rant. But nevertheless, we had to talk about it today. Anyhow, on to the next one. The New England Patriots had a plane that actually flew 1.2 million masks from China to the United States for the first responders, and owner Robert Kraft paid $2 million for these masks. Go ahead, Rick. What are your thoughts about the gesture that Mr. Kraft made?
Oh, I think it's wonderful. I think it's great that Robert Kraft's doing this in this time of need. People need to get together and and help out as much as possible. I know New York. All these places are so short-staffed with masks. A lot of the hospitals with their workers are understaffed with masks, and it's just something that we desperately need. And it's been getting dire where people are using rags to cover their faces
or bandanas.
Or bandanas, yeah. Right. I mean, anything to cover their face. So it's just it's a great gesture. It's not the first time Bob Kraft has done this. I remember when they had the shooting in Florida, that he flew those kids when they were doing speeches. He actually flew them on his private plane.
Oh yeah, you're talking about Parkland, Stoneman Douglas, is that right?
Yeah.
Right. Okay.
And left them real nice letters saying that you guys are true inspirations and heroes and things like that. So Bob Kraft is a good man. He's a terrific owner because he's not a meddling owner. And so I think that's that's great what he's doing. And I mean, these guys are rich, they're billionaires, and it's, use your money for good. And I'm happy to see Bob Kraft do this. So a good big thumbs up for Bob Kraft and his staff for doing this.
Candy, go ahead. What are your thoughts about this gesture by the Patriots?
I think it's wonderful. I think the fact that a lot of people have stepped up to do what's right, because let's face it, there are a lot of people in a lot of hurt and a lot of need. I mean, there's talk that some of these nurses are wearing the same mask for a week. That is just ridiculous. That is putting a lot of people in harm's way. And the people that can afford to help are coming through and helping. And that's just really nice to see that America's kind of coming together and doing things like that.
Yeah, well, I mean, Robert Kraft is not only winning a Super Bowl owner, but a super person. I mean, he's given a lot to that area. He's made New England, a very relevant football town. Face the reality, in New England, you don't have a lot of college football. Yes, you have Boston University, Boston College, and the University of Massachusetts, but what do you think you have out in the New England area in terms of a big football area? Yes, you have Harvard and Cambridge, but so pro football is a big game out in the New England area, and the Patriots have definitely entrenched their championship lore in that area. And let's face the reality, he built a brand new first class stadium. He's Bill Belichick is certainly undoubtedly one of the greatest coaches of all time. I know he'll be challenged this year in terms of the transition from Tom Brady to whoever winds up. It looks like the early favorite is Jared Stidham, and Cody Kessler did get released. So you have Jared Stidham and you have Brian Hoyer. And, and I think another thing I should point out about Robert Kraft is he actually, when Tim Tebow was brought in there for a tryout, he wanted Tim Tebow to make that team, and Josh McDaniels was hoping, but at that time they opted to go with 2 quarterbacks and not 3. So, he acknowledged that Timmy's a good guy, and he really is. And unfortunately, Bill makes all the decisions. And as I've watched documentaries, 30 for 30s and the E60s about the Belichick-Parcells thing, you understand the logistics of how Bill went ahead and brought Belichick on eventually. But the guy that preceded him, I believe, was Pete Carroll, but that's beside the point. But yeah, Robert Kraft is certainly a wonderful human being, and it's good to see him make such a gesture like this. And again, the one thing I can say, and I hate to, is as much as we can criticize even leagues like the NBA for some of their actions, every single sport has done an outstanding job, and person, I should say, connected to the sports world, as well as other companies, but particularly the sports world, of trying to step up and help out. Because again, as we've heard time and time again, guys, this is an invisible enemy is what it really is. And as it becomes an invisible enemy, we need all the help we can. Candy and we may have travel plans that will probably get canceled in later May, and I don't know what I'm going to be able to do, whether I can get to Jacksonville for the draft. But we're acclimating. We're doing what we're supposed to do. We understand the social distancing, but so the sports world and a lot of people in general, and all the ESPN, I've even seen a lot of their programming, and I really compliment those people for not only talking about social distancing, but seeing a lot of these programs where people are practicing it, because they actually are a wonderful example of what we're able to try to do. So we'll go ahead and give you the floor to go ahead and talk about what Rick Curti represents. Rick, the floor is yours.
Well, thank you, guys. I really, really appreciate it. I'm the founder and CEO of the Charlotte Bats. I run a grassroots organization to bring Major League Baseball to our great state of North Carolina and to Charlotte, North Carolina. I think we've had everything else, so we need Major League Baseball in our city. So my website is www.charlottebats.com. We have a petition on there. We actually have a theme song, and you get to know a little bit more about me and what our organization does. You can follow us on our page. We actually have 2 pages on Facebook called Charlotte MLB. Just started. It's a group page, and I just post facts about Charlotte and baseball, and we're also Charlotte Bats Baseball. We're also on Instagram at Charlotte Bats, and I'm also on Twitter at Charlotte Bats Baseball, and I also have a personal page on Instagram at Rick Curti. If you have any questions or comments, anything you like what I said or you don't, doesn't matter. It's charlottebatsbaseball at gmail.com. It's cltbatsbaseball at gmail.com.
You know, folks, I do give credit where it's due, but Rick has been a very big help for the South Florida Tribune and social media. And of course, now he's earned another opportunity to work with Bill Winters and I on another broadcast. And Candy, what broadcast is that?
Motorman and Wild Bill Winters.
Yeah, and now Rick Curti. We still have to figure out the fact that we may have to brand it to the Three Stooges and determine which one it is. But
I need a cool nickname like you guys.
Well, we'll have to think of something. We killed the ranting thing because all of a sudden you ran out of the darn things. But I'm working on the. But if we do the Three Stooges, it's not, if we will, I'm definitely mowing between you and Winters. You have to decide which ones you are, and we'll.
I'm Larry. I would be Larry.
Yeah, well, I think he don't have no problem being Curly, but either way, if you guys step out of line.
Or Curly Joe, I don't know.
TBD. That'll be TBD in the next pre-production thing, so we can get this thing down on social media. Because I'll tell you what, that show has been an awful lot of fun with the three of us. I was joking around with Bill Winters earlier today that now we've gone from basically a two-man booth to a three-man booth, and I'll tell you what. In my opinion, this gives us the ability to do lists. Candy did volunteer for the job today that she wants to be the moderator and she wants to go ahead
and time.
Yeah, well, no, you may earn your established niche. You're doing that moderator thing, especially as we become more list oriented. She volunteered and she's been hired as the moderator to keep all three of us stooges in line. So, hey, it is what it is.
Someone's got to try and wrangle all three of the stooges around.
Yeah, listen. It's all about providing entertainment, information. That's what we're here to do. And if we have to do it with lists, rants, whatever, who cares? Top headlines. It's all about getting it out there. Whether you make a steak medium rare or well done, doesn't make any difference. Y'all have a different taste. So, but we appreciate the work that Rick does, being a social media consultant. He helps us in that area. And now he has the dubious task, of trying to get Bill Winters to understand social media. And I'm confident that he will get Bill Winters to be able to understand it. And Bill's actually coming a long way. I got to give the guy credit. As much as I like to kick him around once in a while, he's about the most coachable individual on the planet. He listens to these shows religiously and tries to find out where he's done to get better. And everybody can do some self-evaluating because it's our job to make sure that we're as smooth as we can be, but also put into perspective that we have fun doing it in a very non-boring manner. So, any closing thoughts, Rick?
No, I just love doing this show and what's going on in the world today. It's always nice to escape and talk about sports, as limited as it is. And I agree with Candy. It's so great to see all these organizations, people like Mark Cuban and Zion Williamson, for example, who are paying the people who work in the arena, the people that work in the concession stands. People don't think about them.
No, they don't.
The concession stand workers or the people passing out programs or the ushers who are not working, period, not getting any money. They're paying their salaries, and I just think that is an outstanding thing to do.
Yeah, that's true, Candy. You want to add to that about all the employees that are being benefited by the graciousness of a lot of the people out there?
Well, there's a lot of people that are out of work, and you have your NBA, NFL, MLB, all those people make millions of dollars. You hear about all these new contracts, but it's the people that are in those arenas or baseball parks or stadiums that are working, that are doing security, that are doing ticket taking, that are feeding all of the fans. Those are the people that are out of work right now, and those are the people that need the work.
And if anybody can relate, Candy, your dad served as a usher for a period of time for the Milwaukee Brewers?
He served as an usher for over 25 years for the Milwaukee Brewers. And for him, it was a part-time job. He supplemented it. It was because he loved the game. But there's a lot of people that it's their year-round, job, and it's one of their incomes that they need. And so it's really nice to see all the people that have stepped up to make sure that those employees continue to get some sort of help.
Yeah, he started with County Stadium, moved over to Miller Park. Sorry, disappointed he never did anything with the Milwaukee Milkmen, Rick. So, But he's a little too late in the game for the Milwaukee Milkmen. But anyways, Rick, been great having you on the broadcast. We'll get ready to do it on Tuesday. I'm sure as ideas come up over the weekend, you'll be getting a quick text, and we'll be doing a quick talk. Well, I don't know if there's anything such as a quick talk with me, but we're going to keep game planning for a lot of good projects that we're going to be working on. So, Rick, you did an awesome job tonight. I can't thank you enough for the extra time you did. But then again, you know what? We're trying to make you somewhat of a journalist, and when you're able to be somewhat of a journalist, and that's good. But you bring ranting and journalism, and now all of a sudden you're a part of a three-man booth. So you've come a long way since we started this thing with my former co-host Peter Wayne. So, Rick, meanwhile, have a good night, and we'll definitely be in touch. All right, buddy? Thank you very much.
Thanks, guys. Have a great night.
Thanks, you too, Rick.
Thanks, you too. So, Candy, what are your thoughts about what we talked about? And we touched on a lot of different interesting areas. Any particular thing you want stands out? I know we did devote a fair amount of time to tennis to this one.
I think...
rightfully so.
Yeah, right. I think that America is starving for sports. And I think even a lot of people that aren't sports fans. I mean, we think about the ESPN of the world, and what are they doing now without sports? Because really, that's all they talk about. I mean, and so they're scrounging for things to talk about and trying to find ways to come up with ideas. They're playing a lot of old time games. Like, I think tonight one of the things that they have going on is they're showing the best NC2A game ever. Football, I believe. Rose Bowl.
We got to do the Rose Bowl, USC, Texas. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and you know what, though? ESPN's got enough in their archives to do it. But yeah, again, and one of the things I really enjoy about the quarantine has really been the ability to watch these other networks do what they do as I gather ideas myself. Part of what we do in our industry is we look at I don't view anybody as competition, but I like to watch what other people are doing so that I'm able to go ahead and provide ideas and philosophies to the show. Now, normally what I like to do on Tuesdays and Thursdays is I do like to network a few times a week with the business community. So I cannot at this particular point begin to network virtually because now this is a very important time for what we need to do to gather ideas. I love the face-to-face. I get it. I only will network once in a while with my group in Coral Springs. I won't say never, never. But the way I have my schedule structured, for the most part, as we stand right now, as I look at it from 7 until 12, that I'm out there trying to scout for content, making calls, and I'll do social media from 2 to 4. We'll do more shows from 5 to 6, and we leave for the studio after 6 o'clock. So that's a pretty much full day, and we stay very busy. But that's not to say that I won't do a virtual one and then I'm dodging that technology. But this is the reality that I have to do right now to try to maximize it and seize the challenge so that we're able to do what we have to do to provide the best content and information that we can. And it's a responsibility that we owe to our followers and our listeners for sure.
I agree.
So, but yeah, I mean, you have to embrace challenges. I know it's not easy, the financial part where people having to get mortgages and they're struggling with all the aid that's being handed out. And yeah, it's like your sister Marie said, it's unprecedented. The word unprecedented is becoming a word that's used awfully, used a lot. And Marie was right. When we booked our ticket back from, we were set out in Arizona and Florida, but when they had to come back from Arizona to Milwaukee, then they realized that they hated to cut the trip short, but the reality of the situation is they had to act on the side of caution, and that's exactly what they did to make sure everybody arrived safe with as few risks as you can. Because you know full well your dad at his age, let alone anybody at any age, cannot afford to to contract this illness at all. They just can't do it.
Right. Well, I mean, when was the last time the world dealt with a world pandemic?
Yeah, no, that's true.
And one to this magnitude.
All right, well, our next guest is South Florida Tribune correspondent Damon Knight. Damon, glad to have you on the Sports Exchange. How are you doing, Damon?
Scoop.
You're very welcome.
I'm doing good, Scoop. Thank you for having me.
My pleasure. Okay, yes. So obviously you have a column coming up. I want you to inform our listeners what it's going to be so they can see it on the South Florida Tribune.
Yeah, so my topic was about Chris Sale. He had Tommy John surgery on his 31st birthday on March 30th. It was very successful. He has been experiencing this pain in his left elbow. It was a flexor strain. He's been experiencing it for like the past 2 years now, and it finally caught up to him. He was throwing a bullpen session in the beginning of March, and it progressively got worse to the point where he had to stop pitching. 14 days later, on March 19th, he had to announce that he was having the procedure. Unfortunately, because of COVID-19, he had to wait 11 days on his birthday to do it. It was successful, and his recovery time is 14 to 15 months. He did it out of fear that he would miss significant time in the season to come. He wanted to do it now instead of waiting.
Well, I commend him for doing that. First of all, you know what kind of season you're going to have in 2020 anyways, do you? So you pretty much any player out there that has a surgery, get it over with in 2020 because nobody knows when you're going to start anyway. So address it now. To me, I hate to say it's an extended off season, but boy, the way it seems like it's turning out, it almost seems that way, doesn't it, Damon?
Oh, yes. And, he's got a weird delivery, so he's going to have to work on that. He's going to have to work on his mechanics so he doesn't re-aggravate that injury. It's unlikely that he'll re-aggravate it because of other players that have had that surgery, have not had problems since. But I'd see that as a factor. He did sign a 6-year, $160 million deal with the Red Sox in 2018. That's a huge payday. That's huge commitment to a player with his injury history. Hopefully he can stay healthy. He is coming off one of the worst years he's ever had with a record of 6-11 and an ERA of 4.40, which is pretty bad. He'll look to bounce back when he returns after that long-awaited debut.
Well, keep in mind, Dr. James Andrews went on record saying he's not doing any more Tommy John surgeries for a while until he can we can all get through this COVID-19. So Sale's lucky he got it when he did, and now he can rehab. Because right now, Dr. James Andrews is not doing them anymore. He's finally said enough is enough. And I think when you talk about Chris Sale, Dave Dombrowski, the former Tigers GM, gave him that contract, so he can thank Dave Dombrowski for giving him that contract. And you always worry about giving a long-term contract to a pitcher because you never know when he's going to break down and deal with this kind of thing. Candy, what do you have to say about this?
Let's face it, a lot of people have surgeries planned or had surgeries planned, but the medical field right now is so taxed that's why they're calling off and postponing these surgeries, because all of those medical professionals are trying to deal with the COVID-19 and all of the patients. I heard the other day that they sent a whole bunch of people up to New York to try and help them with all the patients they have. I mean, they're doing makeshift hospitals. Some places have it really, really, really bad.
Well, you live in an area where they're actually taking the old Cobo Arena and turning it into a makeshift hospital. I guess that's something that hits you closer to home. That I don't know what they call it now. I think they named it a sponsored event. I don't care. To me, it will always be Cobo, but I think I believe they've accommodated 900 beds or so, and it's right downtown. So, again, this is the times that we have to live in. Some of these sporting venues, especially that have roofs over them, or convention centers are definitely temporary facilities. So what are your thoughts about what they're doing in Detroit about Cobo Arena becoming one of those remote hospitals?
I think it's a great idea to attend to more patients that need it, to make it easier at other hospitals to treat their current patients without feeling overwhelmed. I feel like it's a brilliant idea to do that. And it makes Detroit look like a very high-class city to live in, to represent. If you're a team player of their major sports teams, so it really looks good on the city of Detroit.
Well, you know what? I may be from the area. I do have a little hometown bias from time to time. But Detroit sports fans always support whether they win or they don't. They're a great sports town, and typical Midwestern peoples are always down-to-earth people. Candy, obviously, born in Indiana, made in Milwaukee, okay, so to speak. But with all due respect, Wisconsin people are very pleasant people to deal with. I'm very proud to feel like I have some significant roots, okay, in Wisconsin.
Yeah.
The best family on the planet, the Metro Detroit area, Chicago people, they're all great people. And there's a lot of great people around. I don't care.
Oh, wait a minute. I don't know about some White Sox fans if they're great people. Just kidding.
Oh yeah, well I was waiting for that White Sox stuff. Now, if you want me to sit here and mess around and have a little bit of fun with this conversation, that now I'm watching Chicago PD, okay, because I drove through downtown Chicago, the south side where I can see where a lot of these scenes are probably taking place. It's another story. But all kidding aside, I've always found that a lot of Midwestern people, okay, are some of the nicer people. And you know what, living in southern Florida, I find that even you acclimate to the northeastern people to the best of your can, because in the end we all, you try to take the good out of a lot of people. But, let's stay on point here a little bit. Chris Sale, how many times have you ever seen these big contracts with pitchers really ever turn out well anyways?
Not very many. I've seen a lot, even with like non-pitchers. You look at Prince Fielder. He had the neck injury. We signed him to that big deal. I believe it was like a $200 million deal. He was like only 2 years into his deal that he experienced injuries, and we had to trade him. And then he goes to Texas, and then he has to retire due to a neck injury. So it's a big risk. A lot, even players that are reliable, there's always that risk of if he gets hurt, then we're screwed. You look at the Mets with Jacob deGrom.
Right.
Hopefully Noah Syndergaard recently. Players like that, they're always big risk. Doesn't matter if they're healthy or if, they've been injured before. So there's always a risk.
Yeah, well, good point. I mean, whether you're a pitcher or non-pitcher, you got Albert Pujols. They're on the back end of that contract, not very good. I know Prince Fielder, the Tigers were able to acquire Ian Kinsler for Prince Fielder, and he ended up that Detroit made out well there, but you hated to see Prince Fielder go. And then, of course, Miguel Cabrera in recent years has certainly been banged up a little bit due to the wear and tear he's had over the course of a period of time. So, but I want to just point out those specific individuals. Candy, do you know of any other players that probably are not that have not looked very well on the back end of their contracts?
I mean, some would say Ryan Braun right now.
Right.
I mean, he's declining obviously, and he's still getting paid lots. Who else are some of the big contracts that haven't panned out at the end? The people are still. I mean, there's how many teams that are still paying.
Well, here I'll give you one.
Playing.
Yoenis Cespedes of the New York Mets. When he got that big deal there, Detroit moved on from him. And, Yoenis Cespedes, I hated to see Detroit let him go because he was the spark plug during when they were winning and they were, contenders. But Yoenis Cespedes is the ideal person that has had a bad contract. And I know the list goes on and on. The sole focus is on Chris Sale right now. That I personally think that Chris made a wise decision taking a 2020 season, which you wonder if there'll be much of, and you might as well just take advantage of the opportunity that you have to rehab and get a head start on the process. Really, that's what I think.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, he'll put his arm will get that rest, like you just said, where it's not constantly being aggravated. It's given time to heal properly. So, yes, I can see his recovery date being a lot earlier than what they're saying. If they're saying 14 to 15 months, I think 9, maybe, if they're lucky,
Well, he'll need every bit of that 12 to 15 months, but the problem is when baseball's going to start, and, with all due respect, you think the Red Sox are going to be contenders anyways. I think they're probably an 85, 86 win team anyhow. Losing Mookie Betts and David Price certainly didn't help their cause. But, again, they were trying to unload that contract, and they're trying to, hard to believe that the Red Sox do not want to pay the luxury tax. But Dave Dombrowski went ahead and traded a lot of their prospects away, as he did with Detroit. Now, the Red Sox could be on the downside. So, but yet they've always paid a lot of money for players, and they have a few world championships in the last, since the turn of the century, to make up for the debacle they had when they traded Babe Ruth away, the curse of the Bambino, as they call it. So, but all right, you got another minute to go, Damon. Why don't you let people know how they can get a hold of you?
What I was going to say was they also got that cheating scandal over their, glooming over their head. You know what I mean? They haven't been punished for it yet, so they got bigger fish to fry. So it's like, this might be a year where they just kind of sit in the sun and enjoy it, and just sit back and then kind of reflect.
Okay, Damon, go ahead and let everybody know how they can get a hold of you through Twitter and Facebook. How's that sound?
Yes, yes, sounds good. So you can find me Facebook at Damon Knight, and then on the Twitter handle is Damon at Damon with capital DKN 1993.
Oh, you shortened it up a little bit, thankfully.
Yes,
All
I
right.
did.
All
Yes, I
right.
did.
Getting better there. That's all right. I began to remember the long one, but I certainly like the shorter version. And also on Facebook, how can they reach you there?
Facebook, you'll find my picture under me in front of a mic with glasses. It's a black and white photo. Search Damon Knight, Damon Damon Knight Knight.
All right, Damon, once again, you do great work for the South Florida Tribune. When he gets that Chris Sales story up, we'll make sure it's out there on social media. You can follow it on Facebook, and you can also follow it on Twitter. We'll get it up there. So, meanwhile, Damon, job well done tonight, and we look forward to bringing you on hopefully sometime next week. Our goal is to get you on at least once a week, or we'll do everything in our power to make that happen. So, all right, Damon, job well done. Look forward to the story soon. Take care, Damon. Have a great rest.
Yep.
You bet.
You too. Yep. Have a good night. Yep.
So I just want to tell everybody how they can find us. They can find us on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, Spreaker, Deezer, Podcast Addicts, iHeartRadio Podcasts, and of course, as always, on South Florida Tribune, which is www.southfloridatribune.com, where we also have, besides the podcast, we have all kinds of written material. Where we have anything from sports to motivation to even dealing with this COVID-19, information for businesses and small businesses on where to go for some loans and stuff like that. Very interesting website. A lot of pictures too.
And don't lose sight of the fact that we have Reuters on there, a national news source. So Reuters, to me, is one of the most credible news sources out there. I view them comparatively or favorably to the Associated Press, which has been around a long time. So Reuters provides a great national amount of information that you can get both on the sports as well as news. Of course, we have some weather in our particular area as well, because we're obviously in the southern Florida area, based out of the Deerfield Beach, Coral Springs area of the general North Broward, if you're familiar with the area. And for those people, Boca Raton isn't too far away either, so, or near Palm Beach County.
We have a lot of colleges that'll send us content.
Right.
And like I said, it's www.southfloridatribune.com. Go there, read all kinds of articles. We have our contributors, our writers like Damon Knight. We have our podcasts on there. We also have our affiliates that are sending us content. Like I said, it's everything from how to help people with these small business loans right now. All those people that are affected with COVID-19. What to do with those. We have NFL stuff from like the Jags, the Dolphins, the Lions. We have stuff from most of the colleges here in South Florida.
Right.
Including the Gators.
Right, yeah, Florida Gators. Well, how about Lynn LaSalle? She contributes a Me Monday column.
Monday.
Oh, yeah, she's you talk about a lady that's very precise. Lynn LaSalle gets it done. And actually, let's talk about Lynn for just a moment before Bill Winters calls a broadcast. And that Lynn and I are going to do a South Florida Tribune podcast that should probably begin during the middle of April. So stay tuned for updates here. And you can also reach us on Twitter at Tribune South. Also, I have a personal Twitter account, Scoop with 5 3s, as well as on Facebook. You can reach us or South Florida Tribune, and as well as an Instagram page. So we're trying to do as much social media as I can. And one of the ones I really like the most, even though it's not really social media, is LinkedIn. We try to come in contact with the best people possible. And I have a lot of relationships with a lot of people, but LinkedIn, Facebook has been a real big help. So we have a lot of sources for which we can talk to people. I've made a lot of great friends over the last 41 years in the business too.
So did you mention you have a YouTube too?
Yes, and I have a YouTube channel. Thank you very much, Candy, for bringing that up. Yeah, and we're looking to build that up as time progresses as well. Yeah, that's something that I'm working for, and you obviously are the mastermind behind it. I cannot give you enough credit as far as I'm concerned in terms of the work you do, the diligence that you put in after your day position. To me, you know what? To me, you're the glue that keeps this operation together, and you're to me the silent hero in this whole operation.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. But without you and your networking and your going out and getting us all the content, I wouldn't have anything to do.
Yeah, well, that's true. It's a team effort. We certainly try to do everything that we possibly can in an effort to keep it real, and that's what we're going to do. Meanwhile, our next guest is former New York Giants offensive lineman Bill Winters. Bill, welcome back to the Sports Exchange. Glad to have you on tonight.
Good evening, Scott. How are you?
I'm doing fine, thank you.
Hi, Bill.
Hi, Candy. How are you?
I'm good. How are you tonight?
Oh, yeah, I'm just chilling.
You just chilling? We just chilling, and we talking sports. So, we got a few headlines left for you to talk about, so I'd like you to get into them. We talked during pre-production that you had some predictions about where you think Tua and Justin Herbert were going to go. So go ahead and elaborate on those two, please. Bill?
I was listening to the NFL thing on ESPN today, and they started talking about Tua, and I think he's a fit in San Diego because of him being a West Coast kid, and that might be a really good spot. We also talk about Cam Newton. So my gut instinct tells me that Tua probably won't go in the top 10 because of the fact that he's coming off hip injury and there's circulation issues.
Right.
So I think he may be too much of a risk for the Dolphins. So they may okey-doke and take Justin Herbert.
Right.
But I honestly think San Diego's going to risk it because they always do that. They took Bosa when he was injured too.
Right.
They drafted him, and they've got Tyrod Taylor. So that would be a good way for Tua to fit in there in the quarterback room. And if I'm dead wrong, then they'll probably pick up Cam Newton. So this is a very interesting time, but my gut instinct tells me that Tua is going to go to San Diego.
Okay.
Chargers.
So, Bill, I have to ask you a quick question, okay? If they're going to San Diego, I believe they're going to the San Diego Fleet coached by Mike Martz, or are they going to the LA Chargers coached by Anthony Lynn? I need to get my California geography straight here.
Anthony Lynn.
Okay, but they do.
The LA Chargers.
Okay.
San Diego. You know me. It's ingrained in me.
I know.
In fact, if they're smart, they'll move back to San Diego. But meanwhile,
good recovery.
The LA Chargers. Yeah, it'll be the LA Chargers.
That's okay, but meanwhile,
Anthony Lynn and Anthony had Tyrod Taylor, so he knows he's got a good quarterback there.
Right.
Reminds me a lot of the kid that the Panthers just picked up that was playing quarterback for the Roughnecks.
PJ Walker.
Yeah.
Right.
So he's that type of athlete, and I think he's figured it out. But they need to get a young quarterback in there, and I just think this might be a good fit for San Diego. They got to take a little bit of a risk. I think Miami's in good shape with Fitzpatrick in there, and he would be a good mentor for Herbert.
Yeah.
That's my gut instinct. Okay.
Well, hey, listen.
I might be wrong, but I trust my instincts on this.
You know what, Bill? I've lived in this business for 41 years, trusting my instincts. So I'll tell you what. You being a former player, I certainly have a gut feeling you're right. And don't lose sight of the fact that when you talk about Samoan players or people, ever heard of a guy by the name of Junior Seau, and I think they also drafted Manti Te'o for a while, although he's moved on. So, but yeah, they do tend to like those types of players.
On the West Coast with the Portland Breakers, we had a lot of the guys that were Samoan. I played with Junior IU up in Montreal, Kisi Fiatoa, Clifton Alapa, and I played for the Portland Breakers. Frank Montanumi, I can't even say his last name. I just call him Frank Manu for right now.
That's all right.
Frank was a great teammate. Roger Lavasa. So a lot of those guys were of Samoan descent. And as the farther west you go, they've got a guy right now, Bradley Ane, who's got a son that's going to go in the high rounds to the defensive tackle out of Utah. So the farther west you go, the more influence you have from American Samoa and Hawaiian kids. And Tua is from the West Coast. I think it might be a good fit for the Chargers. They need a shot in the arm with that organization. And some new blood, and that might be just what they're looking for.
And you never know.
And I just think that organization will take a risk because what they did with Bosa when he was hurt too.
Well, and you never know. Should he play, he might put some rear ends in the seats in that new building too. You never know. It makes a lot of sense. We'll see in a matter of a few weeks. Okay. Well, I'll go over a couple more things here, and then let you promote yourself because we have a busy night ahead of us later on. Jadeveon Clowney is talking to the Tennessee Titans and New York Jets after reportedly lowering his asking price and to 20 from 20 million to 17 to 18 million dollars. So with that said, okay, do you like the fit with Clowney going to the Titans or the Jets? Which one makes more sense to you, Bill?
Well, I think he's going to the Titans because of Vrabel.
Okay.
Vrabel had him when he was with the Texans.
Okay.
So he knows what he's got, and he just reminds me of Javon Curse. You know, the Titans usually like that edge rusher, and they're willing to go out and pay for it. You know, the way you build a team is you have a great running back, you have a great quarterback, you have one good left tackle, you have a good edge rusher, a good middle linebacker, and a good safety. So you have a superstar in each level, and that's what Vrabel's doing. And I don't think there's anybody out there that can fit the edge as well as Clowney. So maybe, you know, Clowney's got something to prove, and Vrabel knows what he's going to do. Maybe he'll give it an opportunity to give him that opportunity. Because I don't think he's going to get $17 million. I think he'll wait till after the draft, and we'll see some spots. But if there's an opening at defensive end with the Titans, I think they'll grab him. Seattle wants him back, but not at that price tag. On the outside, looking in is the Jets, because you got to go up there and play on AstroTurf in cold weather. I just don't think Clowney wants to do that.
Yeah, I think the end result, money-wise, is $15 million. I think is a number. I think Jadeveon Clowney right now. You know, he has what, one season where he's been healthy. Otherwise, he's been hit by the injury bug throughout his career. So $15 million is where I think it ends.
Maybe he's due to go 16 games. I mean, you know, I can relate to him. You know, he got tough out of the blocks. You know, I think really good players sometimes, you know, have to get injured when they're rookies, and they you know, and then they get really, really strong and wind up becoming Iron Men. So, you know, I think Clowney might, you know, fool us all and go out and play 16 games this year, you know, and earn that money on a one-year deal.
Yeah.
And I think you know, they get to put that carrot in front of them. The Titans might be the organization to do that. And plus, you know, the opportunity to win. You know, I think he went to Seattle because they have an opportunity to win a Super Bowl, and I think the Titans also. So, you know, that might be a good, might be a good fit for Jadeveon.
Well, to give you a little bit more to work with here, Titans gave Ryan Tannehill a one-year deal, and how did that work out? He got it. Yeah, they extended him, so maybe Jadeveon Clowney would definitely fit in with the Titans. And not only that, you know, the thought of playing in the same division as the Texans might give him a little motivation that you should have kept me and you should have paid me, but obviously that situation never played out. But there's some intriguing things, and I have a feeling that's not the last time we're going to talk about that. And our final NFL point. Yes, Bill, go ahead. Yeah.
Let me say something to you as well.
Okay.
The Jets are not happy with Le'Veon Bell.
Oh, they're not. Okay.
They've signed, you know, they've got a really big contract. And I think, you know, and this is not me saying this, is the expert. You know, I watched the show today.
Right.
And I was listening about running backs. You know, the running back with the Titans, you know, he's probably going to get a one-year deal of $10 million. They're not going to go out and do any guys long-term contracts anymore, paying them, you know, $20 million because the production hasn't been there. After they sign these deals, and I think that they're going to, you know, start to shorten these deals up, and I think that's what Dak Prescott's going through right now. I think they're all asking for too much money. And remember what I told you, I think the business model now is going towards building depth and not putting all your eggs in one basket with players paying big contracts, because when they don't produce, it cripples your depth of your team. I think that's why DeAndre Hopkins left to go to the Texans. I think that's why Le'Veon Bell might be on his way out of the Jets, and the same thing with Clowney. I just think that these guys have to lower their contract demands now because of the nature of the game. I don't think there's going to be any long-term contracts anymore with these guys making the kind of money they're making.
Well, just so you know, Bill, Derrick Henry did sign his one-year tender, so I don't know what that number is. But he did
a long-term deal.
Right. Well, no, and I think they're going to probably negotiate a deal, but at least he signed that. So I think it's a good faith gesture on both of them for sure. So now that you brought up Le'Veon Bell,
I got to say, they got to split this one in because, you know, I like offensive defensive line play.
Right.
Adamika Sue's back with the Bucks.
Right.
And it's a great move. You know, I like older veteran players. Okay, they're proven they can go, you know, 16, 18, 20 games. You know, and you know, they're willing to take a pay cut because football means something to them, and they've got some money in the bank too, and those are the guys that usually produce.
Well, Damon is a good businessman anyways. I want to mention something about Le'Veon Bell, then we have one more thing we'll talk about. That will let you promote whatever you want to talk about. Le'Veon Bell, I'd love to see him with the Detroit Lions. They've always needed some running back, and he played at Michigan State. So, you know, if they could get him for the right price and the Lions bring him in. I think he can only help because right now they've struggled, and they believe in rushing the football, and they got to help Stafford in that area. So that's just what I think. We'll see how it all plays out. Unless you, yeah, well, I am dreaming on right now. Oh,
yes.
I mean, I am dreaming on.
Got a big price tag.
Well,
Le'Veon Bell. I love Le'Veon Bell. He's just very expensive right now for the production.
Yeah, but we'll find out as time goes on.
We can get, but I know what management's thinking.
Yeah, we'll find out. Time TBD. All right. With that said, last topic of the night for you before you talk about what you represent is the fact that Jerry Jones has gone ahead and decided to fortify his defense with a man who hasn't played for 4 years. And I'm speaking of Aldon Smith, gets a 1-year, $4 million contract. Now, what helps that situation along is Jim Tomsulo used to be the head coach for the San Francisco 49ers. And now, as I understand the way the contract is structured, okay, it's a $2 million base and a $2 million in sack incentive. So I guess it's probably not as bad of a deal. But here's the thing. You're talking about a player who's probably been in trouble, 5 to 10 times throughout the course of his career, and he's had more lives than Morris. So what are your thoughts about Aldon Smith going to Big D? A place where...
I think it was a great move because it's with Tomsula, who comes
right.
to number one.
Right.
Number two is, and I mean this in all sincerity, and I'm going to drive the point home with another player in a minute that we talked about for
sure.
a while. But this guy can rush the passer, and there's so few guys out there that can do that. And they also got to pay Dak Prescott.
Right.
So it's a high risk move for a guy that's been out for 5 years. But evidently, Tom Sewell's a good evaluator, and I'm sure that the guy's in shape and been taking care of and cleaning up his house. And I think he's going to go out there and possibly produce, and that would be great because then they can pay Dak Prescott a little bit more money and still have really good depth for what I call a great pass rusher for $2 million a year, and that's a coup d'etat.
Well, bear in mind, Jerry Jones had Greg Hardy. Unfortunately, that experiment didn't pan out. But Jerry doesn't mind rolling the dice on players like this, and I give Jerry a lot of credit. But again, the one word that we've really used a lot, Bill, especially during the free agency period, has been the familiarity factor. And we're not going to beat that up too much tonight. But we have definitely used it in the case of Frank Reich. This is yet one of those cases where, Frank Reich and Phillip Rivers, and this is where the Aldon Smith situation plays out with Tom Sewell. All right, we got a couple more minutes to go, Bill.
Well, hold on.
Go ahead.
Let me
all right.
say something to you as well.
Sure, go ahead.
You know my boy Antonio Brown, right?
Yeah, I was hoping to avoid that.
He's going to wind up, don't you?
No, I'm afraid to ask.
Baltimore Ravens.
Yeah, okay.
All right, that is an organization that will rehabilitate a player that has a locker room strong enough. It may not be this year, but it might possibly be next year. He's out there working with Lamar right now, and I just think that that's the type of guy, where you can take the top off of defense and have a guy like Lamar back there. If they get that kid to just be quiet and play football, he might be sneaky good with the Ravens, and I think Harbaugh's going to take a shot at him. So you heard it first. That's a gut instinct.
Well, Harbaugh actually wanted to take a shot with Colin Kaepernick until his girlfriend got involved, only because of Jim Harbaugh. So, yeah, I guess I might be able to back your point up. And then I'm not so sure I would go with it, but, I'm really wondering if anybody will. But because you're always worried about whether he'll be a cancer in the locker room if social media things get out of control, and then you distract what you're doing with a young quarterback like Lamar Jackson. I'm sorry, go ahead.
You just cut him loose. You don't give him any guaranteed money. That's exactly what Dallas is doing. Be quiet and produce and make your money. And I think these guys are going to do that because they've been out of football for a while and that bank account's going low. And it's a learning curve for these young men. And the reality is you might be surprised by the performance of both of them. I'll tell you this. I'm rooting for both of them.
Yeah, well, then...
Okay, I just know it's tough sometimes with some of these kids, what they go through. All right, but the worst is behind them, and maybe everybody has. I'm a big second chance guy. I broke in with a guy by the name of George Allen who loved older players.
Right, I remember that
because they sold their wild oats at an early age. I also had a coach that traded for me, and I kind of saved his job at San Antonio. Then he rewarded me by going to Portland and got me out of that mess there, and I wound up getting a really good contract. So as far as I'm concerned, history has a tendency to repeat itself. But I've seen so many of these throughout my playing days that my gut instinct tells me that some of the things that I'm talking about are actually going to come to fruition.
Well, Josh Gordon's had a million chances too, so but that's beside the point. So all right, we'll see how.
Well, the fact, hold on, with Gordon,
Yeah.
now, they're the pot deal. Okay, it's with the new collective bargaining agreement now, all they're going to continue to do is fine you. All right, so he's probably going to have his cake and eat it too. All right, so that's why he's back in the league, and I think that's one of the reasons why the owners kind of capitulated, because all those players are smoking weed.
Okay.
They're dealing in the real world, and not what the media puts out there, and that's why we do our show.
That's okay. All right, we'll leave it at that. Now you have a few more minutes to talk about what Bill Winters does. Go ahead, Phil. Floor's yours.
Okay, well, you can follow me on Facebook. All right, and my Facebook is Bill Winters. Facebook.com/C/B Winters55. That is my Facebook page. You can go to my YouTube channel, which I'd love for you to subscribe to. Go to youtube.com/C/Bill Winters55. I'd also like you to go to my website, billwinters.biz. I'd love for you guys to read the book that I wrote, From the Outhouse to the Penthouse and Somewhere in Between. I wrote it about in the 80s. A lot of the stuff that I wrote in that book is actually coming true today, so I know that I'm kind of one head of the yield curve a little bit. And also, I'd love for you guys to listen to our show, become regular listeners. If you go to Spotify or iHeart or Apple and type in Motormouth, 2 words, and Wild Bill Winters, you'll see our show, and we'd love for you to listen to it on the South Florida Tribune
Broadcasting Network. Good job, Bill. Good job. So,
Thank you.
all right. Meanwhile, like I said, we are having a lot of fun, and as I alluded to earlier before we get off the broadcast, Rick Curti was wondering. Now we're looking at the Three Stooges. I'm going to be Mo. So who do you want to be now?
Oh, I'll be Curly for sure.
So we got Bill.
He's the coolest stooge.
That's great because Rick said he wanted to be Larry, so you guys got who you wanted.
Is Larry, and I'm Mo.
Yeah, obviously.
Yeah, there you go. But no Bucky and Boots. Kidding.
Candy will always be the hot girl that was always in their shows because those guys are lady killers.
All right, well, with that said, okay, there you have it, folks. We'll put it up there on social media. Bill Winters is Curly, Rick Curti is Larry, and Scott is Mo, and I'm going to make sure you get a lot more shows. Okay, with that said, okay, that concludes tonight's edition of the Sports Exchange. On behalf of Rick Curti, Damon Knight, Bill Winters, we want to make sure everybody stays safe out there. Do as you're told. Okay, don't put yourself in harm's way. We don't want you on the wrong end of the statistical side. Okay, so we look forward to doing it better than ever next week here on the Sports Exchange and the South Florida Tribune Broadcasting Network. Anything else you want to add, Bill, before we go?
Well, I'd like you to go to my Facebook page. I put out an interesting couple of pictures out there. The Joe Burrow's going in the first round. Quarterback from LSU. I played ball with his dad, Jimmy Burrow. So I put up some pictures of Jimmy and our team picture, the 33-man roster with the Montreal Alouettes. There are only 14 Americans on the team, and we were a pretty tight group. I used to ride to practice with Jimmy, Joe Burrow's father, every day to practice. Okay, and I also posted some videos on Instagram, which shows a diverse, why our listeners should be listening to us. I had some videos of me with the Giants, some videos of me with the San Antonio Gunslingers, Tampa Bay Band Support the Breakers, and Montreal Alouettes. And I let the announcers do the talking. Do my talking for me. So I think if our listeners get dialed in, they'll kind of know that we're a little one step ahead of the yield curve, and we're a little bit of an anomaly, and that's what's going to make our podcast so much fun.
All right, well done. Couldn't have said it better myself. All right, once again, folks, we want to wish you a great night, and on behalf of Rick Curti, Damon Knight, Candy Ebley, my name is Scott Morganroth of Motor City in Madmouth. I want to wish you a good night, and once again, be safe, and please follow the instructions of everybody out there. Many states are on shutdown, and I have a feeling that's a trend that's going to continue to take place. And again, every moment we get updates, please pay attention to them. Good night, everybody.
Good night.